This happened 15 years ago, and it's still one of the proudest moments of my life. My best friend and her husband had 5 kids. They lived in a pricey city and rented an old 4-bedroom house for $400 a week. The house was in rough shape, the kitchen needed a renovation, and the sewers were pretty bad. But it was the only house they could afford at the time. Despite the challenges, they were able to find solutions. The landlord was a kind old lady who was very wealthy and very fond of my friend. She agreed to freeze the rent for 5 years and said they could buy the house once they had saved enough money to get a loan from the bank. Since she'd helped others in a similar way, they knew they could trust her, so they cut back on spending as much as they could. It took them 5 years, but they finally let her know that they were ready. 2 days later, the kind old lady passed away, even though there was no written agreement. Then, the property was sold to new owners. The old lady had 4 kids. They were already very wealthy and had inherited a large fortune. When they first spoke to my friend, they said that the deal could still go ahead, but it would have to wait until probate was complete. My friend was optimistic and started making some changes to the house. They started by removing the wallpaper, repainting, and making a few plans. Once probate was complete, the owners agreed to go ahead with the deal at the previously agreed price. My friend applied for a loan, but unfortunately it wasn't approved. The owner increased the asking price by $80,000 without informing my friend. On top of that, the house is going to be listed on the market. The house is going to be on the market in 7 days, and given the current market conditions, it'll probably sell pretty quickly. My friend is pretty frustrated. It might be possible to borrow the necessary funds, but it'll take longer than a week. On top of that, real estate prices have gone up recently, and rents have also increased a lot, while theirs have stayed the same. It'll be tough for my friends to come up with the money. If the house is sold to someone else, they'll have to pay more rent or get evicted. It'll be tough to find a 2-bedroom or larger apartment at a decent price. I was worried for my friends and pretty annoyed too. They were among the wealthiest people in this city. They were harassing a struggling family that had less than $20,000 to their name. They didn't really need the money. It was just greed. It was obvious that they had been planning this for a while. While my colleagues were trying to come up with the funds, I started planning my next move. I did some research to find out what makes a deal happen. We needed to make the apartment as unattractive as possible without making my friends look like bad tenants. The space needed to be tidy and presentable. We moved all the furniture from the walls into the space, bought some new pieces, borrowed some decorations, and hung lots of motorcycle memorabilia on the walls. The space felt even more cramped. Smell. My friend boiled a cabbage on the stove, and we sprayed ammonia in the front and back doors to cover the smell of the cat's territory. We also poured about 20 rotten eggs down the drain to give it that sewer smell. Our neighbors. We bought a second-hand sofa that had a bit of mold on it and put it in the front yard of our neighbors across the street, with their permission, of course. We also asked friends for help with the neighbors. We asked anyone who had a noisy and unreliable car to make a few laps around the block on the day of the open house. The street was unusually busy that day. Everyone we knew found a reason to drive by. It was pretty close to rush hour. Neighbors X3. We also invited some friends from the rugby club, full contact, no padding. A lot of our club members are on the larger side. Our neighbors next door set up a barbecue in the front yard, and we provided free food and beer at a discounted price. They showed up on their motorcycles, dressed in the roughest gear. It was a pretty crowded event. A lot of people came by for the open house. Many of them just looked around and left pretty quickly. One woman sat in her car and watched the party next door, then drove away. Just one person stuck around for a while and had a chat with the folks leaving the party. He asked if they went there often and was told that every few weeks or so, they would throw a party the next morning, and the party the night before would be 3 doors down. The partygoer also mentioned the sewer, which was always clogged with tree roots and smelled pretty bad. The potential buyer left without making an offer. So only my friends made an offer. They ended up paying more than they had planned, but less than the other buyers had offered. My friends signed the papers and paid the deposit that same day. So when the audacious buyer made an offer $30,000 higher than my friend's offer, there was nothing the owners could do. Price increases were strictly forbidden.